Hello English 11 students, and welcome to the Week 8 Day 1 video. This video is designed for students who were absent from our live Zoom class. To keep pace with what we're doing, please make sure you have Canvas open in another tab or window and go to this week's dates. As a reminder, everything you say, do, or type is recorded, so please keep it school appropriate. And as a reminder, there's no saving, downloading, or taking pictures of our class today or any other day, including this video. Our agenda for this video and for day 1 of the week is to review the feedback on your narrative outline and then work on your narrative rough draft. In class, what I did was while students were working on the rough draft, I pulled half the class into a breakout room and did a mini lesson on how to write dialogue in a narrative. And then after like 10 minutes and when that lesson was done, the two groups switched. All of that is included in this video. So you'll just kind of use this video. You can pause it and go back and rewatch it as you need to. As a reminder, right, all of the assignments are due at the end of the live Zoom session. The deadline for today's work is 3 p.m. on Wednesday. So even though you're watching this video after class is over, the deadline is still the same, 3 p.m. on Wednesday. If you have questions or you need help, please attend the student support from 2:45 to 3:15. That's available Monday after school as well as Tuesday after school, or you can attend office hours on Wednesday. Move on to the next part. So first, we need to take a look at your feedback for your narrative outline, right? So you would go to the homepage, go to this week's dates, or you can go, click on that. Then you're going to scroll up to week 7, day 2, right, where your narrative outline was, and you're going to need to click on that and click the Open in a New Tab button. Once you open that, you should be able to see any comments that I put in there. Usually my comments were reserved for if people forgot to put things in, or maybe there was a piece of information that I needed from you. You don't have to fix it in that outline and resubmit, right? The grade is what it is. But the suggestions are there for you to remember to do what you need to do in the actual rough draft of your story. Once you're done looking at that feedback, you can go ahead and pause the video here and take a look at that feedback. Once you're done looking at that feedback, you would need to go back to this week's dates or go back to the modules for this week, and then click on the assignment that says Narrative Rough Draft. Once you've clicked on that, let me get rid of this. Once you've clicked on that, if you look at the directions, it says using your narrative outline, write a rough draft of your story in the box below, right? This box. Because this is a rough draft, I just want you to focus on getting as much writing done today as possible. If you don't know where or how to begin, I provided you with some suggestions, right? The Getting Started Suggestion 1 and Getting Started Suggestion 2, which I'll show you in more detail in a minute. Again, the goal for today is to get as much writing done as possible. Don't worry about it looking perfect. Just get your ideas down on the page. No matter what, everything that you do, like I'm collecting the narrative rough draft twice, right? The first time is just so I can give you some quick feedback, and that is 1 grade for this week. That's again due by 3 o'clock on Wednesday. And then when you're done writing your rough draft, I'll collect it again on Saturday at 3 o'clock. So make sure that you're kind of sticking to those things. Set aside at least an hour, write as much of your rough draft as you can in an hour, and then just turn it in. That way I can give you feedback. Going over these 2 suggestions, I'm going to read the first one here because it's big. It's a little easier to see. If you're not sure how to start, right, you could start your story by writing the climax first, right, the most important or exciting part. Then once you've written that, you can either put the cursor above that and just start the story, right, and write the beginning, or you can do what I did in the sample that I'm going to show you and add a sentence that lets you know or lets your reader know that the story is about to go into a flashback, right, and tell you where the conflict began. If you wanted to see that sample, you click on the hyperlink that says see here, right? And so this is that sample that the hyperlink takes you to, right? So I wrote out this story, and if you read through, it's about a guy who's being chased on his bike by another kid who they apparently got into a fight. But I just want to read the end of it here. How did things end up this way? How did Brian and Julius, 2 kids who barely knew each other, existed at school, get to this point? It all started when Brian showed up 30 seconds late for math class, right? So I kind of give you the most exciting part first, and then I've got these sentences in here to let you know, like, I'm setting you up for a flashback. I'm going to the beginning of my story next. Okay. So that's one suggestion I have for you if you would like, if you're not sure where to start. The other suggestion is basically, and I can't read it because it's too small up here, but it basically is for you to set a timer, say like 5 minutes, and just write without stopping, right? Don't pay attention to punctuation. Don't pay attention to grammar. Just write everything that you're thinking. Then, and that's what I've done here in this one, then after you're done writing everything out, then go back and kind of do your corrections and polish it and make it look good. I'm going to go back real quick. When you look at the directions, if you click on that first link, it says click here for a text sample, right? Where you'll see like two versions of the story, right? The one where it's called free writing, where I just wrote, right? Didn't pay attention to punctuation, grammar, anything. And then I fixed it, is underneath. But if you want to watch the video of how I did that, you can click the second link, and that will take you to this YouTube video that kind of shows you how to do it, right? And it's a quick, like 4-minute video if you needed help that way. Again, we're not looking for perfection in your rough draft. We just want you to write as much of your story as you possibly can in 1 hour and turn it into us so we can give you some feedback as to whether or not you need to make any major adjustments. Like I said, all of that happened in the breakout rooms. Sorry, that's what you're doing in the main room. In the breakout room, I did a mini lesson, which is what I'm about to go over with you now. In order to get to the assignment that you need to turn in for the breakout room, you need to go back to the English homepage, click on this week's dates, and you should see an item that says dialogue in a narrative capture sheet. Why don't you go ahead and pause this video and open that now. Okay, so once you have that open and you click the open in a new window, right, I'm going to go through this presentation on the rules for writing dialogue or when characters speak to each other in a story, and you are going to fill in the blanks on that capture sheet and kind of follow the directions that are there and that you see on your screen. The major tip, and the reason that we're doing this, is so that you would have all the rules in one spot, and you can kind of make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing correctly by using your own notes when you write your story. So let's get started. First, there are 4 rules for writing dialogue in a narrative. Rule number 1, always surround your dialogue, or the parts where your characters are speaking, with quotation marks. One more time. Rule number 1, always surround your dialogue, right, the parts where your characters are talking or speaking, with quotation marks. Rule number 2, start a new line or press enter every time a new or different character speaks. So start a new line or press enter every time a new or a different character speaks. Rule number 3, punctuation at the end of the dialogue goes inside the quotation marks. Okay, punctuation at the end of the dialogue, or when somebody is talking, goes inside the quotation marks. And then rule number 4, when introducing the speaker before the dialogue, the comma goes after the attribution. I'm going to elaborate on what that means a little bit later. So when introducing the speaker before the dialogue, the comma goes after the attribution. Okay, and I'm going to show you what all 4 of these look like in action. So first, rule number 1, right? So before applying the rule, like this is one of those free writes, right? I just wrote this. This is my story. Dan walked up to Janissa and asked, "What do you want for lunch?" Janissa said, "I don't know. Why don't you pick? You know what I like, and I trust your judgment." Dan smiled and said, "Okay, I'll surprise you." Right? I just wrote that story. I didn't stop to put in quotation marks, etc. The easy thing to do when you're trying to figure out dialogue is basically highlight each person's stuff in a separate color to help you see who is talking when. So for example, Dan is in yellow, right? Every time he talks, it's in yellow. What do you want for lunch? Every time Janisa talks, it's in this blue color, right? I don't know. Why don't you pick? You know what I like, and I trust your judgment. Then you notice, Dan smiled and said, and then at the bottom, it's Dan talking again. Okay, I'll surprise you. So I highlight it in yellow. Okay. So then after I do that, it's much easier to apply those rules, right? So Dan walked up to Janisa and asked, quote, what do you want for lunch, right? Those quotation marks. I hit enter and started a new line because it's a different person talking. Janisa said, quote, I don't know, why don't you blah, 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 blah. And then again, because it went back to Dan, right? After I'm done putting in my quotation marks, I had to hit enter to start a new line, right? Hit enter to start new lines. And then I just write that out and make sure to put quotation marks around the stuff that they're saying. Okay, so that's it. Rule number 1 and rule number 2 in action to show you what it looks like. Rule number 3, right, is that punctuation at the end of the dialogue goes inside the quotation mark, right? So what that looks like is this. If you have somebody who says, Sam came by to see you, you put the period here and the quotation mark after it, right? The ending punctuation goes inside the quotation marks. Where is Bill's house? The question mark goes inside the quotation marks. I need you to call my uncle, exclamation point, inside the quotation marks. And the last one, and this is the one that gets a lot of people, so please pay attention, right? She came home with me, comma, quotation mark, Will said, right? And we're going to get to what this is called in the next slide, but whenever you still have like what somebody is talking about and then who said it, to separate them, you have to put in that comma like this one. All right, and then the last rule, right, it says when introducing the speaker before the dialogue, the comma goes after the attribution. So first, let's take a look at the example, right? Mom said, comma, quote, Sam came by to see you, right? Period, end quote. The attribution is the part of your sentence where you tell the reader who is speaking, right? So in this case, it's mom said. It could be something more elaborate than that, right? With a pained look on his face, Jeffrey screamed, comma, quote, ouch, right? Whatever the case may be. The word comes from the verb to attribute, right? To let you know who is the one doing something. So whenever you have that space between when you're telling me who is saying it and then what they actually said, there's always a comma between them. Okay, so now it's your turn, right? If you take a look at the bottom part of your capture sheet, you will see this flawed dialogue sample. You're going to use the 4 rules to fix the sample, right? Every time a new character talks or a different character talks, you want to hit enter. Every time a character is speaking, you want to put quotation marks around what it is that they're saying. If you have an attribution and then what the person is saying, you need to put a comma between them. All right, so take a couple minutes, pause this video, take a couple minutes and fix the flawed dialogue sample on your capture sheet yourself by hitting enter, by adding quotation marks, etc. Take the next 4 minutes and then unpause this video and play the rest. Okay, so now that you've done that, if you take a look at it, yours should look like mine, right? Calvin and Chip have been friends for a really long time, but occasionally their friendship hits snags, especially when it comes to deciding where to eat. A brand new line where somebody is talking, right? Quotation marks. Where do you want to go for lunch? Quotation mark after the question mark. Calvin asked. New line, because Chip is responding, right? Quote, I don't care, comma, quotation mark, grumbled Chip. New line. Calvin then replied, etc. Please make sure that you note, that you added in, there was this comma that was missing. There were these quotation marks. You should have these different lines because this is them going back and forth and talking to one another. Okay. So again, the idea of behind doing this assignment is so that you would have these notes in front of you to be able to use while you're working on your narrative, right? If you want to, like this sample in particular could really help you as a quick guide, make yours look like this corrected sample. All right. So the next thing I need you to do is please go ahead and turn in those guided notes. Once you've done that, you're just going to resume writing your rough draft, right? Again, you could use one of those two suggestions, the free writing suggestion, or the first suggestion that I gave you where, you start at the middle of your story or the climax of your story, whichever one is more exciting for you, right? So after you turn in those guided notes, just resume writing your story. Oops. And sorry, this is incorrect. It shouldn't say narrative proposal, right? You are going to make sure that you turn in your rough draft. Okay. Again, if you need help, or if you need some extra time, you can come to student support from 2:45 to 3:15, or you can attend office hours on Wednesday. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in class soon.